Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
And your host, once again, under assault, ladies and gentlemen. Your host is under fire once again. Your host, once again, being blamed by many for their own unhappiness and dissatisfaction. And somehow it's all my fault. Who knew? Anyway, great to have you here as we kick off another round of broadcast excellence, 3 straight hours. Great to have you with us, as always. The telephone number, if you want to be on the program's 800-282-2882, and the email address, lrushbo@eibnet.com. We hear a lot, ladies and gentlemen, about how Donald Trump. Oh, speaking of which, the New York Times is back. What did we have the New York Times yesterday that they totally didn't understand? What they got wrong? Something they were late arriving, just didn't figure. I can't remember what it is, but they're back. The New York Times has a story today how the Republican elite lost its voters to Donald Trump, and they still don't get it. You know what they think it is? The New York Times thinks that the Republican Party message of trickle-down economics, tax cuts for the rich, anti-abortion, they think that is why Republican voters are abandoning the Republican Party for Donald Trump. Now, that may be, it may be the fact that that's so out of touch with people today. But that's not why people are abandoning the Republican Party for anybody else. It's not why it's not why Bernie Sanders' people are abandoning the. The point is, the New York Times is part of the establishment, and they don't get it. They do not understand what it is. Even Nicholas Kristof, who is a columnist at the New York Times, has written one of the many mistakes the media has made in this campaign. What everybody's going through now in the drive-by media, the entire establishment, they're all wringing their hands. And they're asking themselves, what has happened to our politics? Why is everything so mean? Why is there such incivility? Why are there so many arguments? Why is there so much anger? They're going nuts trying to figure it out. Because again, and do not discount this, where they live, everything's fine, folks. Their schools are good. Their incomes are solid and rising. The unemployment where they live, if we're talking Washington, D.C. and its immediate surroundings, is under 4%, a real under 4%. I keep reading that 5 of the 7 wealthiest counties in America now are those counties surrounding Washington, D.C. So if you factor in New York and the upper crust of the New York economy, of which several establishment members are members and where they live, everything's fine where they live. And it's amazing, they're journalists and other professions, of course. The lack of curiosity has always amazed me. I would think curiosity would be a primary requirement, an ingredient necessary to do the job. But when people reject them, when voters vote against what they believe in, they're perplexed. They don't get it. And rather than make an effort to understand it, they just put down or criticize or impugn voters as being stupid or barbaric or uncivil or inhumane or what have you. But there is never any introspection. And with a lack of introspection, there is the constant assumption that life in America is pretty much like it is in their neighborhoods, in their cities where they live. And that's why I say the disconnect, the degree to which our betters, which is how they think of themselves, our leaders, are out of touch. It's just, I think it would shock even those of you who are aware of and agree with the premise that there's this giant disconnect. I think you'd be shocked at how big it is. And the lack of curiosity. They're out there trying to figure out what Trump's all about. Trump's been in this race since June, and they still don't get it. And they're still struggling, trying to understand it, and they don't. And they think they do now. They keep coming up with explanations that satisfy themselves, but those explanations never involve them. It's always somebody else's fault. It's always somebody else's stupidity. It's always the voters are rabid. It's anything but them. And the New York Times, with this piece today, they are further away from understanding. I wouldn't even call it the cause of Trump's popularity. It's bigger than Trump's popularity. They are further away from understanding why an increasing number of people distrust, have no faith in leadership in Washington. They just, as they struggle to explain this to themselves, they get further and further away from the truth. And I was mentioning Nicholas Kristof. He's a columnist at the New York Times, and he's one of these hand wringers, wringing their hands, trying to what did we miss? What's going on? How do we? And one of the things that he concluded is, and he's right, is that journalists have not ventured out of their little cocoon, the bubble in which they live, and they've not traveled to places where all of this angst, unhappiness, anger, whatever anxiety is, they have not gone to see it. They haven't gone to report on it. They have viewed it from afar in Washington. They comment on it. They characterize it, but they have never delved and stepped into it. That's why I've always joked that drive-by media reporters need visas, to get into Iowa and Missouri and Ohio and so forth. Now you're saying, but Rush, they were just there during the primary. Yeah, they were just there during the primaries, but even in that circumstance, their focus is very narrow on the election horse race. And everything happens under the biases and the premises they take with them as they travel to report on these places. They don't go in with empty brains waiting to be filled with information based on what they find. They set out with stories written, preconceptions logged, and they go out and try to find proof of what they think they believe. And if they don't, then they chalk it up to some abnormality in the electorate or some abnormality in polling data or some such thing. But they are now seriously questioning why. I tell you what this boils down to. They're asking themselves, how did we miss this? Why didn't we take Trump's candidacy seriously? And then they are concluding they haven't gotten out enough, and they haven't gone and witnessed. But this New York Times story today, it's kind of laughable. And then when they start handing out blame for what's going on, believe me, the lives they live and the places they live, everything is fine. It's Ozzie and Harriet days for them. Well, take it not Ozzie and Harriet days. It's Heather has two mommies and all that, and everything's normal and just happy as everybody can be. Their only problem is that Republicans live near them, but they've got them under control pretty much. But really, life is good at the establishment. Life is good in Washington. I mean, that's where all the money is. Go to the audio sound bites. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Our old buddy David Brooks. David Brooks, the fact that they call him a conservative is an insult to conservatism. It is, but it's worse than that. It's an insult to people. David Brooks hasn't been a conservative since he left the Weekly Standard, and even then, you could say that he really wasn't a conservative. He was a moderate, quasi-liberal Republican, but he worked at a publication that was thought to be conservative, and he wasn't a both feet in the water Democrat. But the fact that he's the conservative on the McNeil-Air NewsHour, or whatever they call it now, he's a conservative columnist at the New York Times, but he's not in any way, shape, manner, or form. And the real question, do the people at the New York Times know this? Do the people at PBS, is that what they think? They clearly don't think that Brooks is a conservative. They despise conservatives. Pick your favorite caricature of a conservative. Gun nut, pickup truck driving, running around bombing abortion clinics, showing up on Saturday night, the parking lot at church to get the front pew. Don't speak English very well. That's what and then David Brooks is the guy that they hire to write columns for them, to appeal to that group. David Brooks is the guy PBS hires as a conservative to relate to the conservatives in the audience. That's not even what they think of conservatives. Brooks isn't. When he is on with Mark Shields on PBS, they agree with each other about everything they say. And Shields is a classical ultra-radical leftist, like they all are today, in moderate clothing. But in fact, it's last night, PBS, Charlie Rose, speaking with David Brooks about politics in America. And Brooks kicks it off with this.
This is like the worst thing to say in 2016, but I've come to be a believer, and we need to fix the establishment. I believe in establishments. We have big problems. You need big institutions to tackle them. They have to be run centrally. And so we need a really good State Department. We really need a good...
So on the agenda ought to be reforming establishments.
Reforming institutions, yeah. Our institutions are fraying. The Congress is the prime example of an institution that has frayed because it just the norms of behavior, the invisible codes have been ripped away.
Okay, now imagine anybody that's actually fired up in this election, in this campaign. I don't care. You're supporting Cruz, you're supporting Trump, well, I don't know anybody supporting Kasich. Actually, I do. I know two people supporting Kasich. Still. But imagine you're one of those people. I mean, you're really into this. Does any of this that you just heard make any sense whatsoever? Well, it's like the worst thing to say in 216, but I've come to be a believer. We need to fix the establishment. I believe in establishments. Of course he does. He's a member. We have a big problem. We have big institutions that tackle them, and where they have to run more centrally. So this is a conservative. He's talking about centralized command and control to fix what's wrong. And this guy's a conservative. And today people are blaming me for selling conservatism out. People are blaming me. It's all over the place now that I am the one who's betraying conservatism. I'm the one who is single-handedly causing conservatism to be watered down, misdefined, redefined. And yet here's the conservative participant on PBS, the conservative New York Times columnist claiming to be a big believer in establishments. Because we got big problems, and therefore you need big institutions to fix the big establishment. And they have to be run centrally, meaning you've got to have a powerful, engaged executive, i.e. president, and a coterie of supporters, and they are the smart people, the best and brightest, and only they are qualified to deal with all of these big issues and big institutions, and it's got to be done centrally. So we need a really good State Department. We need a really good State Department. We need a really good State Department, okay? And Charlie Rose says, so on the agenda ought to be reforming establishments? Really, is this what these guys think is going to win an election this year? Is this what these guys think is on the minds of people? Or do they have not the slightest idea what people go through in their daily lives today trying to deal with the absolute excrement sandwich this administration has been serving for the last 7 years? They really think people out there are worried about fixing the establishment? It's quite the opposite. The establishment's already considered to be corrupt, and people seeking ways around it. If people could, they'd blow it up politically. So Brooks says, yeah, reforming institutions, yeah, our institutions are fraying. Congress, prime example of an institution that's frayed because the norms of behavior, the invisible codes have been ripped away. What does that mean? Well, the next soundbite might tell us.
I talk about Trump as a revolution in manners. And the reason we have manners, the reason we don't talk about each other's wives and how they look, or the reasons we don't insult people's looks or call people losers and liars, is that it enables us to be a community and be citizens together. If you rip away those manners, it's just dog eat dog. And to me, when he rips away the shroud of those manners, he's really reduced us to just scrambling scorpions in a bottle. And so restoring manners, restoring codes of civility and just decency is the prerequisite for restoring institutions and
Mr. Brooks, let me tell you, your civility and your codes of conduct and decency are what many people have resulted in the Republican Party being smoked for the last 7 years. Not fighting back, not defending the people that voted for them, not defending the issues and the institutions that define this country's greatness. The Republican Party, in its quest to be civil and to prove they can make Washington work, is getting rolled, issue after issue after issue. And it is hurting the American people. The American people are being harmed in their daily lives, economically, culturally, by the dominance of liberalism in this country, which, as a conservative, you are supposed to be enlightening people about and opposing it. And I haven't heard a word from David Brooks about opposing liberalism or stopping it. All he wants to do is get rid of all this name-calling and stuff. Has he paid no attention to what George W. Bush was called by these very Democrats he seeks to emulate? He's worried about name-calling and all this other stuff from Trump. Has he not heard the Democrats calling George W. Bush Hitler, and did he not object to it? Or did he say, well, we must understand their rage. We must be civil and polite in our disagreements with our friends on the left, because we all must work together at the end of the day to preserve our institutions and the establishment. Are you not aware, Mr. Brooks, that the things you seem so upset about happening with Trump or anywhere else on the right are the daily norm of today's Democrat Party that you somehow cannot stand up and speak out against? There's one more bite here, of course, and we'll have it in a minute. Don't go away.
America's most listened to talk radio host.
Rush Limbaugh.
On the EIB network.
New York Times had a story claiming they couldn't find anything in common with terrorists. They couldn't, there was nothing that they could find that could help anybody to understand who might be a terrorist, who might become a terrorist. So that was yesterday. Today, the New York Times...
I would say deeper than that, depending on the character of the people, but egotism. If you have a basic humility, or at least if you've been taught all your life to value humility, then you think, well, good chance I'm wrong about some stuff.
Yeah.
So I need the people who disagree with me to balance out my error. But if you're taught you have the truth by the short hairs, then what do you need the other people for? And that's a lot of what we got going on.
That's a lot of Obama.
Well,
you just said that.
Yeah, okay, fine. You're trying to but it's not only Obama, it's Rush Limbaugh, it's a lot of people.
But I mean, that's a vast difference between the two of them.
I agree.
All right, so you hear what happened here? So here's Brooks going on and wringing his hands about people that think they have all the answers and they have no humility. They don't realize they're wrong, so they never go to people who tell them they're wrong and try to learn from them. And Charlie Rose says, yeah, like Obama. So like Obama's running around saying, you got truth by the short hairs. And Brooks says, well, no, Rush Limbaugh. It's Rush Limbaugh. It's Rush Limbaugh. It's that. And Rose said, no. Well, yeah, but it's a lot of people, but it's Obama. And Brooks says, well, there's a vast difference between the two, and I agree with that. But this guy wouldn't know humility if it hit him in the face. Obviously, he doesn't listen to this program. Humility on display every day here. And by the way, just for the record, folks, I, El Rushbo, have never, ever said that I have the truth by the short. Now, Obama has. I've never said it. Brooks thinks it obviously irritates Brooks that I am so confident of myself. He's one of these guys that just nobody can be that sure of themselves. Except us establishment members. We can be that sure of us. But these plebes out there, these talk radios, these serfs, they're not supposed to be that sure of themselves. That's just it's coarse, it's ill-mannered, it's unsophisticated, it's poor breeding, it's all of these things that these guys think. Yet there is their hero, Barack Obama, actually having had said that. And isn't that very crude, by the way, to talk about having the truth by the short hairs? Where's the dignity in that? That certainly wouldn't qualify as civilized discourse in the clubby confines of the world of David Brooks. The Truth by the Short Hairs. Imagine if Trump had said something like that. Obama did, and they all just, yeah, but Rush Limbaugh, he thinks it. But I never said it. I may give the impression that it's true, but I haven't said it. I haven't used those ugly words. The Short Hairs. Ew, everybody knows what you're talking about. I wouldn't say it. But Obama did. Political news today, Scott Walker, the very brave and very courageous governor of Wisconsin, has endorsed Ted Cruz today.
It's time that we elect a strong new leader, and I've chosen to endorse Ted Cruz to be the next president of the United States for three simple reasons. One, I just fundamentally believe that he is a constitutional conservative. Ted Cruz is the best positioned by far to both win the nomination of the Republican Party and to then go on and defeat Hillary Clinton in the fall this year. And that's the key, is we want people who are principled, common sense conservatives, who are people who do what they say, who stick to their guns, but also people who can both win the nomination and go on to defeat Hillary Clinton in the fall.
So this is a major endorsement. Scott Walker is hugely popular in Wisconsin, and for a reason. You talk about guts. I mean, you know the Scott Walker story. I've been one of the longest and earliest admirers of Scott Walker. Scott Walker, just to remind you, did everything in defending himself and his job, his position, his state, people that voted. He did everything we have ever asked a conservative to do. The left threw everything they had at him. They threw all the uncivility they can marshal. They were mean. They were ill-mannered. I'm serious. And yes, I'm goosing Brooks here, because it's exactly what Brooks needs to hear. The left is who he needs to be arguing with. The left is who needs to be straightened out when it comes to manners and civility and being respectful of people. Look what they did to Scott Walker. Look what they tried to do. Not just destroy him in an election. They tried to ruin his career, destroy his career, upset his family. They did everything they could to totally destroy the man in 3 different elections. A couple of recalls in the standard gubernatorial elections. And Scott Walker withstood all of it in a huge blue state. Madison, Wisconsin is one of the Midwestern meccas of progressivism. University of Wisconsin is there. But the whole state, on balance, hugely radical left. And Scott Walker not only got elected, he instituted his reform policies. And he created a budget surplus. And he cut taxes. And he de-emphasized the power of unions. He was able to strip them. It was classic. He was exactly the kind of Republican that Republican voters have been clamoring for. He was a fighter. He took no guff from them whatsoever. He put his head down and he just kept charging. He was unintimidated despite every effort they made to frighten him, to scare him, to intimidate him out of politics. And he hung in there. And I remember extolling his virtues for the longest time. He ran for president, and he had the early lead, before Trump got in and before everything got upset and shaken up very tremendously. Scott Walker came out in one of these early Iowa polls, and he was just dwarfing everybody. And then the campaign wore on, and I guess some people thought that his foreign policy, what people called it, lack of preparedness or awareness, knowledge, whatever, something did him in. But at the outset, he owned it. I mean, he had huge leads, and he's just been, I think, a role model for other Republicans under the gun, other conservatives under the gun, how not to bow to pressure. And I've always had the greatest admiration and respect for him, and still do. And he's thrown in now with Ted Cruz, and makes perfect sense. Here's the second part of the endorsement soundbite, by the way.
Scott Walker is a strong, principled conservative. Governor Walker, with the help of the men and women gathered here today and all across this state, won an election, and then another election, and then another election. And when Scott stood up to the union bosses, when Scott saw death threats and attacks and protests and anger and yells, millions of men and women all across the state of Wisconsin stood with Governor Scott Walker. And y'all's heroic stand together inspired millions across the country. It inspired me. It showed that when we, the people, stand up together, we can beat the special interest.
Well, there's much more than special interest going on here, but Walker did successfully beat back the unions. Speaking of which, Supreme Court decision today. This is what happens. We have a 4-4 decision out of the Supreme Court. It was deadlocked. Compulsory wage confiscation for all public sector non-union employees was upheld. It was a 4-4 vote, which means the case stands as it was when it got to the court. There's no change in it, which means that unions can now demand non-union workers on the job pay union dues. Union dues is a money laundering operation for the Democrat Party. Here's how it works. The Democrat Party cannot yet go to the United States Treasury and write itself checks to run campaigns and win elections. So what it does, it throws little bones here and there to unions in terms of policy, protectionism, any number of things. The unions go out and charge their members dues, and most of that money, a majority of that money, ends up being donated back to the Democrat Party. And the cycle continues. This is essentially how the Democrats launder money from unions back to themselves in order to, it's all come under the guise of campaign contributions. But what's happened is that a lot of people grew upset that non-union members are being charged dues. How can that happen? So a suit was brought, and it deadlocked 4-4 at the U.S. Supreme Court. So it remains now compulsory wage confiscation called dues for all public sector non-union employees. And we've got stuff like this happening, and we still have to hear that there are Republicans unhappy with their primary process, thinking about voting for Hillary Clinton if they don't get their way. Yeah, this kind of stuff is what tears up the fabric of our culture. This kind of ruling, the Supreme Court, this kind of behavior, requiring people who are not members of unions to pay dues. This is what people expect leadership in Washington to protect them from. There doesn't seem to be any interest in it. Instead, we have to hear Republicans talking about how their noses are so out of joint, they're so unhappy, and they're so dissatisfied that they're going to vote Hillary if they have to protect what they've got. But to heck with trying to protect what their voters have, or to heck with trying to improve the lot of their voters. So we have the Scott Walker endorsement of Ted Cruz. Wisconsin primary is a week from today. But make no mistake, and I touched on it yesterday, the efforts are underway to game the Republican convention in Cleveland to deny it to Trump. Now, I know, folks, that it looks like a lot of Republicans, establishment Republicans and others, are now lining up behind Ted Cruz. And some are. But don't doubt me on this. There are people at the upper levels, the highest echelons of the Republican Party, who do not want either Donald Trump or Ted Cruz. And when I said yesterday that the party, certain elements, particularly convention rules writers, and the people who hold sway over delegates, seating delegates, the delegate rules at a convention. This is much more complicated than many people know. You never really see it because most nominees are chosen during the primary process. Most conventions are not contested. The last one on the GOP side was 76. People have forgotten what happened there. But if neither candidate wins on the first ballot, then after that, it is wide open. And the people that run that convention can determine who gets seated as a delegate. Some delegates haven't even been chosen yet. We have these primaries. We hear that, like, Trump won 99 delegates in Florida. This is 99 delegates. He won Florida. But those delegates may not have been chosen yet. My point is, the delegates, the actual delegates are going to attend the convention, be sitting there on the floor of the convention with their state, with their leader standing up and announcing how they vote during every roll call. Those delegates, it's a prime honor to be chosen as a delegate. Some elected officials are automatically delegates. Others are chosen. And how you get to be one is every bit based on connections and who you know and otherwise as anything else in life is. And if the people that run that convention want to make sure that on a second ballot there aren't any delegates in there for Donald Trump, they can try to set that up. If they want to make sure there aren't any delegates seated that are going to vote for Ted Cruz, they can try to set that up. They run the show. So while it looks like some Republicans are reluctantly or eagerly, depending, getting behind Cruz, my thought is that at the Romney level of this convention, at the whatever the upper echelon is and whoever you associate with being there, they are going to try. They may not succeed, but they're going to try to implement the following. 1,237 delegates needed to win the nomination in the primary process. If no candidate gets to 1,237, if Trump doesn't get there, even if he's just 50 short, if Cruz doesn't get there, there will be an attempt. I don't know whether it'll succeed. There will be an attempt to establish or write a rule or enforce a premise that neither candidate is thus qualified to be the nominee. Because since neither candidate got the minimum number required in the primaries, this is the same as being rejected by the people. They're going to try to set up a process whereby they can say neither Trump nor Cruz gets a nomination because they were both rejected by Republican primary voters. Republican primary voters didn't want either one because neither one got to 1,237, which throws the whole thing open. Despite these endorsements for Cruz, the Cruz people and Trump people had better be on the ball here for everything about the rules at the convention, the rules they write before the convention starts, and how these delegates are chosen and who they are, and under what rules of order those delegates can vote. This is for all the marbles here. This is for who is going to own the Republican Party, who is going to be the Republican Party, and what it's going to be. And that's why you got people saying, I'll vote Hillary before I lose this party and my place in it. We'll be back. Don't go away.
Rush Limbaugh, simply brilliant, on the EIB network.
The campaign manager for Donald Trump, Corey Lewandowski, has been charged with misdemeanor battery for roughing up, ostensibly, allegedly roughing up the reporter for Breitbart, Michelle Fields. Trump says he's absolutely innocent. He's completely innocent. He's not guilty. He didn't do it. Was charged this morning in Jupiter. Well, Palm Beach County, it's the same bunch. Misdemeanor battery after allegations of forcefully grabbing Michelle Fields at a Jupiter news conference. It's up at Trump's golf club up there. After Trump acceptance press conference one night following the March 8th conference at Trump National Golf Club. Michelle Fields, she's 28, she's walking out, tried to ask Trump a question, and Lewandowski supposedly grabbed her arm so hard it bruised her. And they talked about it. Corey Lewandowski denied it. Trump denied it. Everybody denied it. Even the Breitbart people didn't defend her right off the bat. Threw her under the bus, resulting in her resigning and Ben Shapiro, also at Breitbart, resigning. But now the charges have been filed, and we see where it goes from there. But it's hardball out there. I want to grab a phone call before the hour ends. Chuck in Milwaukee. Great to have you on the program. You're first today.
Yeah, great to talk to you, Rush. Okay. I have an issue with you about talking about Scott Walker.
Scott Walker, right on.
Okay, last week Scott Walker made a statement saying that he didn't think none of the three candidates would be the nominee for the presidency. And now he's flip-flopping, supporting Cruz.
Wait. Now, wait a minute, Chuck. Help me out. I didn't hear that, and I hear everything. I'm not disputing you. I mean, it's getting to the point. Even it's tough for me to hear everything. What Scott Walker said that he didn't think either Trump or Cruz or Kasich would be the nominee.
Yeah, it was even on Breitbart last week.
Oh well, if it was on Breitbart. What exactly did he say?
He just says that he didn't think that none of these three nominees would be the nominee for.
But I mean, did he say that they're no good? They're not going to get. None of them are going to win it. They're not qualified. Why?
No, because it'd be an open convention, and none of them would get it. It'd be someone else.
Okay, I'm flying blind here. We need to find out what he said because I'm not able to. It sounds like what you're saying is that Scott Walker predicted an open convention, and because of that, none of these three guys are going to get it. And then today endorses Cruz, and you think that's a flip-flop. We'll look into this. Chuck, I appreciate the call. I really do. I got to take a break, though, now because I'm out of time. So just stay where you are, folks.
Beacon of Freedom. Rush on the EIB Network.
All right, it was as I thought. Scott Walker said that if it goes to a contested convention, that none of these three will be chosen. I think he happens to be right in terms of expressing the desires of GOP leadership. But that doesn't mean he can't endorse Cruz. I don't see a flip-flop here. Two different things, if you ask me. And we'll be back before you know it. Don't go away, folks. Yeah, it is exactly as my instincts suggest. Scott Walker just happened to say, talking to reporters last Thursday, and all he said was, quote, I think if it's an open convention, it's very likely it will be somebody who's not currently running. I mean, who knows? The one thing I qualify, it's like the qualifications you see on those ads you see for car dealerships. I think any of us who comment on this election have to qualify that almost every prediction has been off, so it's hard to predict anything. But he was look, Scott Walker, he's closer to this than I am, and he obviously knows what's going on. If neither of these throw Kasich in there just because he's still running. If neither of these three, that really is such a joke. But he's there, so if neither of these three get 1,237 delegates, I'm telling you, Walker, his instincts are right on the money. The party wants to choose somebody else. Folks, there's no mystery about this. Don't be fooled by these endorsements for Cruz. I mean, some of them are legit, but look at Lindsey Graham. When Lindsey Graham, who I like, by the way, he's okay. He's as a human being, he's not a reprobate. I tell him when I think he's off the rail politically and so forth, but he said when he endorsed Cruz that he thinks Kasich's the best guy. During his endorsement of Cruz. I mean, all these guys are qualifying their endorsements of Cruz. Some aren't, like Scott Walker. Some are full-fledged endorsements. But I'm here to tell you that the grand poobahs of the GOP don't want either of these two people, Trump or Cruz. And you know that. You don't even need me to tell you that. They're both considered to be outsiders. Interestingly, they really don't like Cruz much more than they don't like Trump. They think Cruz is a big hypocrite. They think, well, you know what they think of Cruz? I'll tell you what they think. They think that Cruz is bitter. That, Cruz started out with George W. Bush. His wife started out with George W. Bush, and he was. They think he was in the establishment. They think he was trying to climb the ladder of the establishment. That's what they think. They think Cruz was in it. That he made a career decision to rise as high as he could in the Republican Party, and he gave it a shot. And because nobody liked him, I'm just telling you this is the scuttlebutt out there among the people, the upper echelons of the party. And because nobody liked Cruz, he didn't go anywhere. And so he had to change course and decided to buck the establishment. And the establishment guys know it, think he's a hypocrite, and then they don't like him to boot anyway. So those are the reasons they're opposed to Cruz. There are more reasons, too, such as Cruz is conservative. They don't want any part of conservatism actually dominating the Republican Party. which is the strangest thing. You know, they wanted to de-Reaganize this party. And they did, and they don't like the results. Isn't it interesting? That's really what they're upset about. They try to de-emphasize conservatism, get conservatism out of the party in terms of it being a dominating factor, and they don't like the results. So they're striking out, trying to blame all kinds of people except themselves. They are the reasons why they find themselves in this unenviable position, a perennial loser on the national level. And Trump, they just don't like because they don't think they control Trump. They think they might be able to make deals with him. But Trump's such an outsider. Trump's made a mockery of their whole business, and they just can't let somebody win doing that. They can't let some outsider who, in their minds, doesn't even know what he's doing, come in and actually take control of their apparatus and triumph. No way. Not going to happen. Yeah, we're not going to let anybody from outside our organization come in here and upset the apple cart this way. The point is, Walker's right. If nobody gets 1237, the Grand Poobahs are going to use that as a pretext of choosing somebody else. But that doesn't mean that Walker can't endorse Cruz. He's not being hypocritical there. He's not flip-flopping. So he's free to endorse whoever he wants, and he has endorsed Cruz. I would have been shocked if he would have had endorsed Trump, because Trump is not party. That's kind of what was surprising about Christie endorsing Trump. Trump is not party. And the party people, the party guys, stick together. Now, in the Corey Lewandowski situation, it's kind of strange. The media cannot get enough of this. I mean, CNN, I think, has been doing this for a half hour already. And all there is to this is this. Lewandowski has been charged, and there are two schools of thought. Some people say that he's not been arrested. He has been instead served with an order to appear. So it's not technically an arrest, but is a written order to appear in court on a certain day. And that's where you essentially are arraigned, you enter your plea, and then they go from there. Now, the Jupiter police, however, are saying he has been arrested. So there's some linguistics disparity here. But it is a misdemeanor. The maximum statutory penalties for what Lewandowski's been charged with: maximum 1 year behind bars, maximum 1 year probation, either or, and then whatever fines might be added to this as well. Now, given that this would be a first offense, you don't know the political makeup of the prosecutor's office. I mean, there's all kinds of factors that will weigh in on this. And of course, Lewandowski is going to plead not guilty, which means it's going to require proof on the part of the accusers. But what's going to happen here is that the anti-Trump forces are going to start running with this. And my prediction is that they will fold this in to the effort they are making to show that Trump is just doing so badly with women, that he's polling so horribly with women. And now his campaign manager says, since he's been charged with roughing up a woman, oh my God, that's the way they're going to play this out. The opponents of Trump and the media as well. But that's all it is right now. You've the denials that it happened. You've got the woman, Michelle Fields, with bruises on her arms. The video of this, I don't know how many angles of it now there are, but unless somebody can really slow-mo this video down and then use all kinds of graphic pointers and arrows on the screen, you would never know this thing happened. You have to see it in slow-mo. Somebody has to tell you where to look and what to look for. So just in terms of video capture, there's nothing apparent that you can see. It happens while people are exiting the stage area, the podium area. And Trump was leaving, and he didn't intend to answer any more questions. And there's press all around. And he's got the entourage acting as bodyguards and so forth, escorting him out of the ballroom at the Trump National Golf Club, whatever the place was. And this woman, Michelle Fields, got in there somehow and tried to ask Trump a question. And the charge is that Lewandowski grabbed her arm and yanked her away from Trump and out of line, and that she almost fell to the ground. There was such force being used. Trump did not see it, and you can see on the video that he couldn't have. It happened behind him. He didn't even know this had gone on. Nobody knew it had gone on until Michelle Fields popped up, and there was a witness, a reporter for the Washington Post, who was behind all this, who said that he saw it. So there is, that was in there, the bruises on her arms. So they've been unable to take Trump out using everything at their disposal. They have tried everything they know, both the media and the Republican establishment. And don't think the Democrats haven't been looking at this and figuring out how they would do it if time comes. And nobody's been able to. So this is the latest effort. This is the latest event that has presented itself to maybe take Trump out of this. Oh, and there's one other thing I've got to, there's somebody posted something at some obscure website that I've not heard of. It may not be obscure to the people that read it. The woman, don't remember her name, claims to have been an original hire by Trump at a PAC-like organization. I don't think that the woman was hired. She was a PR spokesman. I don't think she was actually hired to speak for the campaign. She was hired to do something related to it. Anyway, to cut to the chase, this woman wrote a piece that was published on this website in which she claims this whole thing is a joke, that Trump never intended to win. All he wanted to do was to get to 12 to 15% in the polls. He would be content to be in second place, but didn't want to win. He just was doing this for added prestige in business, added promotional visibility. I forget other things that she said. And she said that but all the people that started out were just true believers, and they loved it, and it was exciting. And when Trump started, nobody ever thought it was going to get as big as it has, including Trump. But then, she writes, she began to sour on Trump. She began to sour on the ego and some of the horrible things that he was saying about people, like what he said about McCain and others. And eventually she said she couldn't take it. And she felt ashamed and embarrassed that she'd ever been a Trumpist. And so she left, and now she's writing this piece to warn everybody that Trump is out of his league because he never intended to get this far. He never intended to win. Well, you saw it. I mean, it's the woman never claims that she worked for Trump. You are to infer that she was close to Trump, but she never actually states that. It's when I read this, I didn't really attach much credence to it, and I didn't even print it out. I could probably find it. But I've been waiting for this. The reason I'm bringing this up is because I've been waiting. I'm surprised it's taken this long for somebody claiming to be close to come forth and say, hey, he doesn't want to win. He's scared to death. He never intended to get it this far. This whole thing is just a joke that took off, and nobody working with Trump had the slightest idea. But what's changed? Now Trump does want it, she writes. Now he's dead serious and wants it. Now he can see it. He never thought he'd get anywhere near the White House, and now he can see that he can. And he is serious about it now. And all this desire to finish second is out the window. He wants the whole ball of wax. He wants the whole shebang. He wants it all. And nobody can tell him anything, she writes. Now, I don't know if this piece that I saw is going to bubble up. I would think that it would have by now. By bubble up, I mean show up in the drive-by media. So far, it's at an obscure website, maybe linked by the Huffing and Puffington Post, but I can't, my memory is not even clear on that. But I've been waiting for somebody, maybe not even with the camp, I've been waiting for somebody to pop up and say, because this is what happened with Perot, folks. Except in Perot's case, it was true. Perot didn't want to win and got scared to death when it looked like he might. That's why he quit. That's why he got out. Do you remember the excuse that that Perot gave when he announced he was exiting the campaign? I do. He said he had had his fill of Bush dirty tricks. When Bush hired photographers, infiltrated his daughter's or daughter-in-law's son's wedding or whatever it was, that was the final straw. That's what told him he didn't want any part of this. And at the time, everybody kind of chuckled because that's chump change compared to what was actually happening in the campaign then. To say, you're getting out because some photographers infiltrated your daughter's wedding and this is dirty tricks, you don't want to deal with it? But that's what he said. So because that happened in '92 with Perot, I've been waiting for somebody, maybe making it up, lying about it, doesn't matter, but I've been waiting for somebody to pop up and say, you people are falling for a giant scam. He doesn't intend to win. He doesn't want to win. He never set out to win. Now he doesn't know what to do because it looks like he's going to win. So if you haven't seen it yet, and you Trumpists, you keep a sharp eye out because it's out there now. It's just waiting to be picked up. And I don't know that it will. Maybe the woman that wrote this thing has no credibility with anybody. I don't know. But you know how things are when they hit the World Wide Web. You know, and somebody tweets, a little sentence or two from this thing. You just don't know how things can explode out there and out of control. And I just wanted you to be on the cutting edge. The Limbaugh letter has raised and enlightened a generation of high-information voters. It's pure substance with humor. We take on the left in print.
Subscribe now and get one extra issue and 2 bonus reports free. That's the Limbaugh letter at rushlimbaugh.com. You're listening to the EIB Network.
Yeah, now look, I found the article and I found the website, and I'm not going to tell you what they are. Look, I'm not going to be responsible for them. I've told you everything you need to know about it. People magazines picked it up. Look at this, maybe Slate, Yahoo, and so forth. But it's. I'll give you. Here's another article posted at this website. Here's just to give you an example. I love my baby, but I regret becoming a mother. That's the kind of story posted at this website. Another, I kid you not. Are you ready for another one? David Brooks, cover your ears. You might consider this to be uncivil, but I'm just going to read you another story posted at this website. I was born without a vagina. I was born without a vagina. I love my baby, but I regret becoming a mother. I started working for Trump, but he never intended to win, and when he thought he could, I got scared and quit. Look, I'm leaving out one word, and not even I'm going to read the whole headline. I was born without a vagina, fill in the blank. That's what it says, okay? Brett in Southern California, you're next on the EIB network. How are you?
Hi, Rush. Long-time listener since 1990, first-time caller.
Great to have you on the program, Brett. I appreciate that.
Oh, gosh. I have 2 quick comments, 2 points. The first one is listening to you earlier, the segment about Brooks and Rowe's conversation and their just elitist comments and how he was referencing the establishment, reminded me of what you said several years ago. And I don't know if it's 15 years ago or 10 years ago or what, but it was a long time ago. You had always said we need to politically destroy or defeat the Democrats. And back then I thought that was a little, I didn't say harsh, but I just thought it was Well, I don't know about that. We just need to, convince them.
Okay, let me guess. You're driving around and you're I mean, you think you're a political guy, but you're not in this to fight. You're in this to prevail and win. But it's not politics is not a life and death thing. And you drive around and you're hearing me say, folks, I'm telling you, if we're going to have a country like you and I have known it, we are going to have to politically destroy the Democrat Party. And you thought, my God, that's so extreme. Holy cow, that's so far. That's probably what you thought, right?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it wouldn't come close to making me shut you off. I actually agreed with you, but I just thought the terminology
you couldn't
might have been a little harsh.
Little extreme to say destroy the whole party. Yeah, but I meant it. I meant it then. I mean it now.
Oh, if people listened back then, we wouldn't be where we are now. So now it's not about destroying politically the Democrats. Now it's liberals, and the thing is the Republican establishment is now lumped in there. So now it's really, to me, no more a party. It's it's philosophy, obviously.
You are so right, and I'm going to tell you how you're right, because what you're really saying is that the Republican Party, you finally agreed with me. You finally understand that it was liberals that I was talking about. And what do we not get from the Republican Party? We don't get pushback against liberalism ever anymore. They used to. When the Republican Party, when its presidential candidates or, heck, anybody in it started deriding and accusing people of being liberals, it worked. It used to be a bad name. The liberals, that's why they came up with the word progressive, by the way. There used to be a day, but today the Republican Party doesn't stand for opposing it. They don't push back against it. They don't try to characterize it at all. And that's sad reality. And that's one of the reasons why the left continues to prevail. No opposition where it counts. On CNN weighing in on this Lewandowski thing. I don't know, something about that just offends my sensibilities. A Kasich spokesman? You got the Trump spokeswoman up there. You got a Cruz spokesman. You got Kasich spokesman. You got Wolf Blitzer. And they're ganging up on the babe. She's holding her own pretty well. What's her name? Katrina. What's her Friedman? Peterson. What's her name? Katrina. Anyway, a Kasich spokesman. What? Pearson. That's it. Katrina Pearson. A Kasich spokesman weighing in on it. Okay, back to the phones. Roger in Detroit. You're next, sir. Thank you for calling the program. How you doing?
I'm good. Rush, why are you in favor of a brokered convention? It seems at this point Cruz is nothing but a protest vote. He can't win 86% of the delegates. I don't get it.
Why am I in? I didn't know I was in favor of a brokered convention. Why do you?
Well, because there's no reason at this point to cast a vote for Cruz because he's not going to win 86% of the remaining delegates.
I didn't say that. I'm sorry. Are you no, seriously. Wait, are you inferring that that's what I mean when I point out he's got to win 80s? Well, I'm trying to warn everybody of what's coming up at a brokered convention.
Okay, so at this point, why should anyone vote for Cruz? Why shouldn't Cruz drop out and just say enough of this garbage trying to kick Trump? Everyone is kicking Trump from every angle. He's getting no positive press. What's the purpose? Trump is getting Democrats to switch, 50,000 Democrats in Pennsylvania to switch to Republicans.
Right.
Is that a bad thing?
No, I've talked about that. I'm the guy pointing out that Trump has put together a coalition the Republican Party's been claiming that it needs, but that they want no part of it.
How could the Democrats win when Trump is gutting out their base? That is their base. Besides the African-American vote, the working-class white union guy is their base, and Trump is gutting it.
Well, but I'm going to answer your question, but I'm not going to. I'm telling you what other people are saying. They're claiming that despite all of that, Trump's negative numbers with women and Hispanics are off the charts, and that whatever he's bringing in terms of the white working class Democrat voters not enough to offset his negatives. I don't happen to believe any of that. Roger. I'm just telling you what they're all saying. I don't think it's possible for a candidate's negatives to be as high as they're reporting Trump's to be, and the guy winning. I can understand if a guy's in third place like Kasich has won one state and has negatives like that. But it doesn't make sense that the front runner running away with everything has high negatives like that. Something here is out of whack. Doesn't make sense to me. But I'm just telling you what they're saying.
How did he win 1 million votes in Florida if he's so negative, Mr. Trump?
But you know how this works. He's the front runner. Everybody guns for the front runner.
Well, why Congress is at 4% approval rating, and they keep winning re-election. And
because nobody's voting to reelect Congress. They're voting to reelect their guy who they think's okay. They hate every other member of Congress, but they love their guy. Everybody knows that.
That's not true because they feel betrayed. Most voters feel betrayed by the Republican Party. 86% feel betrayed of the voters that are voting for Cruz or Trump.
Two ships passing in the night here.
What's that?
You're absolutely right that the attitude of people is anti-establishment. It's anti-Washington. But when you go to vote for your congressional representatives, it doesn't say vote for or against Congress. It's your guy on the ballot. Look at the. If you doubt me, do you know what the incumbency re-election rate is in the House of Representatives?
It's like 90%.
Right. So what does it tell you? Despite all this hatred, guys keep getting reelected because people like their guy. They hate the institution and they hate everybody in it, but they like their guy because their guy just got the old folks home built or just brought back money to build a bridge across some little waterway somewhere.
Well, that's the problem. All these people bringing the pork home.
Yes. Yeah. That does not, don't misunderstand. I'm not arguing with you. What I'm telling you does not cancel out the huge anti-establishment sentiment that is propelling Trump and to a certain extent Cruz. But it is contradictory because the very people that have this distaste for the establishment are returning their own congressman at a rate of 93% to Congress. I do not want a brokered convention. Who's a brokered convention? Where did it? He's inferring this is important. As a communicator, I have to learn this. So I'm not going to argue with him. Roger, I appreciate the call. I appreciate. He's obviously a Trumpist. He thinks that I'm a cruiser. I did answer his question. I didn't know that I wanted a brokered convention. I do not. Yeah, now I know I do, so why do I want one? You know, it's fascinating, folks. This man, Roger, he loves his candidate, he loves Trump, and he thinks everybody's ganging up on his guy, including me. He listens to this program, and all he hears is Cruz, 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 Cruz great, Cruz this, Cruz that. And it won't be 5 minutes, or we're going to take a call from a person, how can you sell conservatism out and be so supportive of Trump? Why haven't you condemned Trump? Why haven't you warned everybody what a rot-gut, horrible guy Trump is? You're letting conservatives... In the Washington Post today is a giant piece blaming me for all of this. I alone single-handedly am responsible for the dilution, the watering down, and the ultimate disappearance of conservatism. And yet, I'm for a brokered convention. I am a cruiser. I'll tell you, listening to the phone calls of this program, sometimes I wonder what I am for. Based on what people think they're hearing. Actually, folks, no, I've got it all under control. I find it fascinating. This guy is such a Trump supporter that he's convinced that I am for a brokered convention. No, wait, he's a Cruz supporter. No, wait, now I'm confused. He's a Trump supporter praising Cruz to high heavens, but then he complained at me. This is what confuses me. He accused me of being a cruiser, but at the same time I'm telling people not to vote for Cruz because you have a prayer. Brokered convention. Yeah, right, because I want a brokered convention. Right. Well, if Cruz gets out, there won't be a brokered convention. I mean, because Kasich's not going to win any more states than he's already won. I don't know. This is all just Everything, folks, you never stop. Everything's a learning experience. Everything has in it teachable moments. And, I remain fascinated when I learn how people think and how they hear things. It's very helpful. Thanks again, Roger. This is Burl. Burl in Houston. It's great to have you on the program. Burl, how are you?
I'm good, Rush. 20 years, Republic of Texas dittos, buddy.
Thank you very much, buddy. Great to have you here.
A couple of things. First of all, your last caller made the point that Trump is getting hammered everywhere. I would beg to differ, because you turn on the news, you turn on the Trump news channel in the morning, you get Trump and Friends, then you have the Sean Trumpety show, you have Bright Trump.
Wait.
Damn ridiculous. Now, my main point was this.
Keep going. Go ahead.
My main point is this. Listen, these strumpets are whoring themselves out to the first millionaire that comes along and promises them the world. And what disgusts me, Rush, is this guy is a lifelong liberal. I don't like the establishment either. But so what do? To get rid of the establishment, we elect a liberal? I'm angry. I'm angry about one thing more than the establishment. I'm angry. I'm 43 years old, Rush. It's the first time in my life that I have the chance to put a real, true conservative into the White House. And it's disgusting that these people are falling for this charlatan. And it's also very disturbing to me, because I've turned off your show a couple of times, Rush, and it disturbs me because I've been a fan for years and years and years. What bothers me is that if Trump was doing the same things, if he was the Democrat nominee doing the same things, acting childishly as he does, and denigrating women, you would be all over him. You would be destroying him, rightfully so, because he'd be the Democrat nominee. I don't understand it. The conservative world has gone crazy. You know, you had these strumpets calling in saying that Ted Cruz is the establishment candidate because of who he's associated with through their very reluctant endorsement of him. That being the case, then, and by the strumpet logic, what that is Donald Trump is a Democrat because he gave money and he was associated with the Democrats for years and years and years. But they don't get that. There's nothing you can say to a strumpet to change their mind.
I know.
And it just blows me. It blows me away.
I know.
Look,
I know the frustration. You cannot, in your mind, you cannot talk sense to a Trumpist. You can't get them to see common sense as you see it. You can't get them to see the red flags and the warning signs. Nothing you say will talk them out of it. And then you turn on Trump News and watch Trump and Friends, and it's just more than you can handle.
It's absolutely true. And you know, I used to enjoy going to Breitbart. The one person I still enjoy listening to you, but I get it's you a little bit, Rush, because like I said, I mean, you would be denigrating him were he the Democrat candidate. I just feel that's true. But I also think it's not my view of common sense. There are actual factual things out there that facts don't matter. You had another caller today that was saying that Scott Walker flip-flopped. Are you kidding me? Scott Walker had one little flip-flop and it bothered this Trump guy, but Trump has flip-flopped for the last year on everything that he said for the last 20, and that doesn't bother you? Well, no, you know what?
Wait. Hang on a second. Let me give you my view of this. It's going to be repetitive because I've said all this before, but
I know you have, and I appreciate. You don't need to explain it. I'm just.
No. I do need to explain this. I do need to explain. I got to take a break. If you can hold on through the break, I want to explain this. It might make you a little angrier, which I don't want. No, I don't want to do that. That's not going to be the purpose.
That's okay.
Let me tease it by telling you,
I'm good.
I don't think that what Trump is doing is flip-flopping in the sense that we all consider flip-flopping. But don't get mad at that. I'll tell you why and what I... Just hang on. I got to take a break. Just be cool.
We already know it. Recent polling proves it. America's most influential conservative voice. Rush on the EIB Network.
Back. Burl, you still with me here?
I am, Rush.
All right. Now, this is very, very important to understand. You are accusing Trump of essentially flip-flopping because you're right. He's donated to Democrats, and he's done this and that and the other thing. The reason that I say Trump can't be looked at as a flip-flopper is that Trump is not political. This is the attraction people have for him. Trump is not an ideological person. He's not like you or me. When he sees Chuck Schumer, he doesn't see a raging left-wing extremist who poses a great threat to the American way of life. He just sees a guy he's got to get through and move around, get around, whatever, getting business done. Trump, this is the hardest thing. He's running for president, which is a political endeavor, but he's not a political guy. His principles are not rooted in ideology. His principles are rooted in Trump and rooted in business and rooted in Trump's success and Trump happiness. He does whatever he has to do to succeed in that regard. The attraction people have for him is just that. He's not politics. He's not Washington. He's not shaped, formed, flaked, battle-tested by any of that. The people supporting Trump blame all of that for what's gone wrong in the country. Politics is the disease. They don't think we need somebody better at politics than we've ever had. They want somebody that has nothing to do with politics. They are intrigued by the possibility that somebody doesn't know hell from Shinola about politics can come in and actually fix what the professional politicians have screwed up. And everybody acknowledges that that has happened. And that's his attraction. That's why you can't talk a Trumpist out of it by calling him a flip-flopper. That's why you can't convince a Trumpist to give up Trump by saying, hey, the guy's a liberal. He supports Democrats. They don't care. They see Trump as a success. There comes the Trump jet. Here comes the Trump motorcade. There's Trump Tower. They see success. They see a guy who hasn't been held back by any of these political people. They are being held back. They see a guy who's found a way around it. They see a guy who's been able to bully his way through it, whatever they think of it. They don't see a guy playing a political game. They see a guy getting out around it and escaping it somehow. They're intrigued by the possibility that precisely because he's not politics, that's the definition of outsider in their view. So if you want to talk him out of it, you're going to have to go about it a different way. You're going to have to try, hey, he doesn't know what he's doing. Hey, he's really not competent. You're going to have a tough sell because they see the big Trump jet with a big Trump name on it in gold. You're going to have a tough sell no matter what. They are emotionally connected to more than just Trump. I've been trying to tell people this for 6 months. They are emotionally connected to much more than Trump personally. Trump represents what they think may never again happen in their lifetimes. This is the equivalent. I wish I could give you an analogy, and I can't off the spur of the moment. But that's how big it is to them. These people, many of Trump's supporters, and many people that don't support Trump, by the way, look at the political world and really resent the attitudes we get, the lack of connection, the lack of any real concern. The concern they have is for people that aren't Americans yet. Can't even get some of these people to correctly identify what terrorism is and who's doing it. It's serious stuff in their minds. They're losing their businesses. Their kids' futures are bleak, they think. And they've tried, they've invested in the political system all their lives, and they've tried playing by those rules. And they always, in their minds, end up with a short end of the stick. So they're excited. They're excited by this, the possibility, what it represents. If it blows up, if they elect a guy that doesn't have the slightest idea what he's doing, in their minds, it's worth trying. Because what we've been doing their whole lives has made the biggest mess of the greatest country on earth they could possibly conceive of. So flip-flopping is not going to compute. Now, some other things I have to touch on. I'm out of time here. This babe that wrote the Trump piece that he's not serious, she never even worked for the campaign. She worked for a PAC, an early PAC. I don't even think it exists anymore. I got more on that. And this notion of Cruz dropping out, whoever got that started, that's not reality.
He didn't start it, but he'll be happy to finish it. Rush on the EIB Network.
94.5 WPTI, your news, talk, and sports station.
Fact checkers are weighing in on this piece I told you about, the woman that used to work for Trump and quit, claiming he doesn't really want to win and all that. It's being blown up and shot full of holes here pretty good, but there's other stuff out there, too. Some stuff about Hillary is pretty juicy coming up. Sit tight. Now, let me make one other thing clear based on a previous caller. When I point out that Ted Cruz would have to win 80% of the remaining delegates in order to win this outright, I'm just telling you what is. I'm not suggesting any. When I suggest to you what the Republican Grand Poobahs are trying, I'm trying to warn you, I'm not advocating it. I'm just trying to tell you what's going on. They're trying to arrange for a convention where neither Trump nor Cruz get 1237 so they can choose whoever they want. Let me cut to the chase. They want to choose Jeb. They want to choose Paul Ryan, maybe Romney. They want to choose one of their own. They don't care. I mean, they'd love to win, don't misunderstand. But if they lose to Hillary with one of their own, that's better than winning with Trump, as far as they're concerned. This is who these people are. Do not doubt me. I know. Preservation of themselves. Preservation of that which defines them. Preservation of the Republican establishment is paramount. Just like, I mean, anybody would want to preserve what is theirs that they're a member of. You want to preserve your church. You want to preserve your country club. I don't know, whatever you're a member of. Well, that's their club. That's their deal. It just happens to be one of the most powerful clubs in the world, working in the most powerful city in the world, and they're just not going to sit idly by and let either an outsider or a genuine conservative come in and take it from them. Pure and simple. So they're hoping that neither Trump nor Cruz get to 1237. Because then they're going to write rules that say, well, those two guys are disqualified. They ran, and they've both been rejected by the people since neither of them got the nomination. That means our convention's open. That means it's up to us to choose somebody because the people failed to do so. That's what they're going to do, folks. They're planning it now. But they're going deeper than that. They're going to start playing games with who the delegates are. Delegates, not all the delegates have been chosen. Who runs this? The Republican Party. State organizations. They're going to choose delegates that will follow orders. They're going to choose delegates that will do what leaders want them to do. They're going to choose delegates who may not have to be told. If they want a bunch of anti-Trump delegates in there, they'll do so. Remember, the second ballot is what counts. If nobody gets 1237. That's why the Trump people had better be in there working on fighting all this and making sure that they get their own share of delegates. I mean, it's up to candidates, organizations. You have to fight for all this stuff. Nothing's given. Cruz has to be doing the same thing. You got to run the campaign, and you also have to be working hard, the state organizations, to be in the mix when it comes to selecting and choosing a delegate. Some of them are elected during primaries. Some of them are elected during little party meetings and whatever. Some of them are appointed. It's a big honor. Then you got super delegates. Republicans have them too. They're called something else, but they've got them, and they vote the way the leadership wants. They're not as prominent as they are in the Democrat Party, but they're there. But none of this should be surprising. It's not even conspiratorial. It's all happening right out in the open. This is what the people who run the show want to happen. Now, when I say Cruz needs 80% of the delegates, he does. But let's jump forward a week here, and let's say that the Wisconsin primaries today. Now, a point that I made way back before the Hawkeye Caucus and before the New Hampshire primary. Remember all that period of time where all we had was polling data? And the campaign was in full swing, but we didn't know anything. We just had polls. We had analysis. We had pundits. And everybody was telling us what they thought it all meant as each day went by. And I told everybody, this stuff, all of it's going to be out the window the first day we have results. I warned you. I told you, let's jump forward to Iowa. Somebody's going to win Iowa. That's going to change everything. We actually have hard votes leading to a hard result. And then a week later, we're going to have New Hampshire. It's going to change again. Well, we're in another lull. There's a 10-day, 15-day lull here between the last primaries and Wisconsin. And we've learned something. And by the way, when Cruz won Iowa, did that not throw a bunch of things out of cart? I mean, Cruz wasn't supposed to win Iowa. The polls all had Trump winning Iowa. Then Trump didn't do the Fox debate. Everybody said, well, that's why. He kind of thumbed his nose at the people of Iowa, so they voted for Cruz. But whatever, we had a hard result, changed everything. Same thing's going to happen in Wisconsin. We are now in a lull, and people are forecasting what it all means, but we've got no hard results. People have all this airtime to fill. CNN still is doing Corey Lewandowski. They've been for 2 straight hours now with a rotating bunch of guests. No less than 4 guests opining in every segment. CNN is today trying to destroy the Trump campaign. Fine and dandy. They're the media. It's what they want to do. They're afraid of Trump. They don't like Trump, whatever it is. They're trying to use this Lewandowski thing to raise doubts, war on women. I mean, I'm not listening to it, but I can see it happening here. But April 5th is big. It's big in any number of ways. You want to play a little hypothetical here? Let's play some hypotheticals. I love playing hypotheticals. April 5th, we know, because of a story in the New York Times, that Wisconsin, April 5th, begins a 100-day plan implemented by the Republican Party to stop Trump. They don't think they have to stop Cruz because they don't think Cruz can get to 1237 now. He would need to, as I say, win 80% of the delegates. But wait. The polling in Wisconsin up until this week had Trump winning in double digits, but now it's virtually tied. Trump 36, Cruz 35. It may be the other way, but it's a 1-point lead for whoever has it. It's certainly margin of error. It's a massive switch from what it was a week, 2 weeks ago. This Lewandowski thing is not insignificant. Let's say that Cruz wins it. If Cruz wins Wisconsin, it's not an isolated thing. It doesn't just, okay, Cruz wins Wisconsin, what's next? Because what's next opens all kinds of doors. You're going to hear people, for example, oh my God, are the wheels coming off the Trump campaign? You're going to hear, oh my God, is Trump really not prepared for the rest of this campaign? Does Trump have an organization? Is Trump's campaign imploding? You're going to hear all of this if Cruz wins Wisconsin. And I'll tell you who's going to be leading all that. The Republican establishment's going to be leaking and planting stories in Politico, their favorite go-to place. The New York Times, they're all going to have in-depth stories on, wow, it looks like Trump is actually imploding. And you'll hear stories, he had 20-point lead, 25-point lead, 50-point lead, nationally, 10-point lead here, 20. And now he's lost Wisconsin, and they're going to run with that. Now, at the same time, will that goose the Cruz campaign? Remember, Cruz has a theory that in a one-on-one campaign with just him and Trump, that he'll win and win big. The theory is that Trump's been getting maximum 37%, the primary vote. The other 63%'s been divvied up by 3, 4, 5 candidates. But now there aren't 3, 4, 5. It's just Cruz and Kasich over there. So the theory is, with Trump at 37 as an average number, 63% of the vote potentially for Cruz to get. What if he only gets 50% of it? That's still a landslide win over Trump. If something like that happens, then whatever comes after Wisconsin, everything changes again. The tone changes. The narrative and templates will all change. And then you'll start hearing Cruz only needs to win 70% of the remaining delegates, combined with, is the Trump campaign imploding? Now, if Trump wins Wisconsin, then you're going to have the Republican establishment in a giant panic, because Wisconsin is where they are investing everything to stop Trump, the first of their 100 days. If Trump wins Wisconsin, takes a majority of the delegates in Wisconsin, then the result for Cruz, not good. So you're going to hear Cruz will not get out. Cruz is going to stay in this, whatever, all the way through, whatever this contested, brokered, whatever you call it, convention is. Cruz believes that it should be either him or Trump that gets a nomination. It should not be somebody that has not run, or it should not be somebody who ran and only got a handful of delegates and then quit. But that's what the establishment would like to do. So my point is this is nowhere near over. Anything can happen, and nobody knows what's going to happen yet. But when it does, when we get the results next Tuesday night, I'll be flying home for my annual cigar dinner, watching these results come in. We'll be here on Wednesday the 6th, analyzing it all, 1 week from tomorrow. And there's going to be a hard result, and it's going to change everything. Whatever it is. Right now we're in the lull, where all we can do is what I'm doing. Play the hypothetical game. Theorize, predict. I'm not actually predicting. I'm giving you hardcore analysis. I can tell you what one of many options of things will happen. I'm laying out the possibilities here. But I have no idea what is going to be the end result. And it's foolish to try to make it predict. Too much to happen between now and then. We still have a week. Well, will you keep hammering this brokered convention that I want? Who says a guy calls here and says you want a brokered convention? You're acting like the guy stumbled into some sort of truth here. What I want's irrelevant. I'm like everybody else. I'm observing this. I probably happen to be the most objective guy analyzing all this. I know nobody else in the drive-by media. They're all invested in one of many ways in the outcome of all this. And I am too. The outcome I'm invested in is Democrats lose. However we get there, Democrats lose. I do not want Republicans to lose. Pure and simple. I want the Democrats to get beat, and I want them to get beat soundly. I better get started. If I don't get started here on other elements, my other stack and the sound bites here, I won't. So we'll kick off here. Last night on the Trump File on the Fox News channel, fill-in host Martha McCallum. What? I didn't say that, did I? I'm sorry, Kelly File. She's on vacation. Martha McCallum sitting in and was interviewing Kasich. Poor Martha. Anyway, she said, if Donald Trump gets to 1,237, will you back off? Will you back off and say he's a nominee?
That's like saying, well, what if a spaceman lands tonight?
Not really. He's not that far away when you look at the delegate math. So I'm just asking, we know what your scenario is if he doesn't get there, but if he does get there, Martha, does that change it?
But he's not. No, he's not going to get there. We're going to a convention. No, he's not. And look, if I had left the race, by the way, he would have won Ohio, and he would have been guaranteed about getting there. We're going to be competitive in the states going forward, and he's not going to have the delegates. And you know what? Of the 10 times that Republicans had a convention, only 3 times did the leading delegate winner was able to win the convention.
What is he talking about?
Just because you don't have as many delegates as the leader doesn't mean you can't win. In fact, 7 out of 10 means you do.
Of the 10 times the Republicans had a convention, 10 times, that means 40 years. There have only been Republican conventions for the last 40 years? Oh, he's talking about brokered conventions? Well, why didn't he say that then? Of the 10 times a Republican had a brokered convention, only 3 times did a leading delegate winner was able to win it. Okay, her question was very simple. If, there was an if in there, if Trump gets to 1237, will you back off? That's like asking me if a spaceman's going to land. No, it's not. It's a legitimate question. He's not that far away. If you look at the delegate, if he gets, he's not going to get there. He's not going to get there. He would have gotten there, but I stayed in Ohio. The country owes me a great debt. My story is remarkable. It's remarkable. To come from a son of a mailman in McKees, it's remarkable. I'm going to be the nominee. Okay. She tried. She tried. It's battle duty, I'm telling you. Battle pay. Back, I'm looking at the clock. I'm looking at... Yeah, I don't want to have to hurry through these. Quick timeout, my friends. Obscene profit break. Back with Hillary Clinton. Don't want to miss this.
Election 2016. It's a fight for the soul of America. And Rush Limbaugh equips you for the battle with facts, opinion, and optimism. In each issue of the Limbaugh Letter, be prepared for the onslaught. Order the Limbaugh Letter now at rushlimbaugh.com. That's rushlimbaugh.com. You're listening to the EIB Network.
Okay, the woman that wrote the Trump story, this, what is her name? Stephanie Sagilski. Little research. She never worked for the Trump campaign. She worked for a distant PAC. She portrayed herself as, well, it's titled An Open Letter to Trump Voters from His Top Strategist Turned Defector. She never was a top strategist. She was never close to the campaign. She was never part of it. And even the leftist Snopes.com fact-checked it and came to that conclusion. Number two, these stories on, I was just telling you what's going to happen after the Wisconsin primary. If Cruz wins, you're going to get all these stories about Trump campaign imploding. Those stories have been written since about August. And they've been sitting on reporters' computers and iPads. Just like obits of famous people are written way in advance so that when the famous person dies, the obit can run immediately. Reporters have been expecting Trump to implode and get out of the race since 2 weeks after he got in. Those pieces have been written. They're just waiting to run them. I'm just telling you, that's what they're hoping. Hillary Clinton. One of the things that I have said over the years in talking about her, trying to categorize her and let you know that she doesn't intimidate me. I've never been paranoid or afraid of Hillary Clinton. One of the things I've always said is that if she hadn't married Bill Clinton, nobody would know who she is. Contrary to the PR on her, that she had her own great life, she had her own great future, she was going to be a great lawyer, the smartest woman in the world, and she gave it all up because she married Bill Clinton, and so she's owed everything because she gave up her own life to help support, prop up Bill Clinton. She would have been, nobody would have known her if she hadn't married Clinton. Sally Miller, a former concubine of Bill Clinton, former Miss Arkansas, former mistress of Bill Clinton, has been speaking. She's been doing interviews out there. And to a website called the American Mirror. We have a couple sound bites. Here is the first.
Hillary could never have made it to Washington, D.C. without Bill. Bill was the song and dance routine, you know? He's the one that played the sax, and he could laugh and joke and talk, and Hillary can't do that.
She's a former mistress of Bill Clinton. There was pillow talk. Everything she says here, she claims Bill told her. Here is, I guess what you say the PA status is. It's up to you whether you want to believe it. The American Mirror is a website. They found the woman. They recorded an interview. And here's the next bite. Things that she is saying about Hillary Clinton today.
She had several abortions before she had Chelsea, and it was only because Bill convinced her that if they were ever going to move up in politics, that they had to have a child, because that's what the political analyst had said. She is a Gloria Steinem kind of feminist. If you ever seen pictures or heard Gloria Steinem, just a cold, conniving bitch. That's just it. And they don't care about anyone but themselves. That's what most feminists are all about. It's about themselves.
Okay, so there's stuff out there about Trump, and there's stuff out there about Cruz, and everything. This is horrible. It's just distasteful. This stuff is, we gotta clean this up. How dare they put this stuff out and so forth. Well, it's out there about Hillary, too, now. And I don't know who's going to believe any of this. I don't know how this is going to be used, manifest itself. But I would be shirking my duty if I didn't acknowledge that it's there. And this Sally Miller is not an unknown, popping up out of nowhere person. She is an acknowledged concubine, mistress, philandering partner, whatever, of Slick Willie. And she claims that Clinton told her all this. and that Hillary didn't want kids and had abortions, and that Bill said, no, we got to keep one there for politics. You know, everybody demands it. It tells them that we're a family. Got to do it, Hillary. Having more fun than a human being should be allowed to have. Rush Limbaugh, ensconced firmly behind the golden EIB microphone. Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Hey, Bill, you're next. It's great to have you with us in the program. Hello.
Hi, Rush. Big fan. I've been listening for 14 years, and I just really appreciate your analysis. Good stuff. But my point real quick was earlier in the program you had a caller that felt like Scott Walker kind of flip-flopped. And what I think he was referring to is the larger picture that all these people who believe that we need to unite as a party and that a contested convention would be a bad thing, even Cruz has admitted that, are jumping behind Cruz, who essentially doesn't have a path to the nomination. I mean, I understand that it's not over till it's over, but he's not going to win 80% of the delegates coming home with all, with what's going on. I mean, Trump has started a movement. You look at the 30,000 people he's getting at all his events. I mean, there's just no questioning the energy that's behind what Trump's doing and how excited his supporters are. So I just think he found that hypocritical, that the guy is scared of a contested convention, but he's playing for a candidate who really can only win in a contested convention. And then I feel like the other caller who was confused because he felt like you're not being conservative or whatever, that was basically you said that if you're a conservative, Cruz has to be your guy. Those are your words. And so, in my view, your whole show has been about what a conservative is and you defining conservatism. So if you make that statement, how is that not an endorsement?
Is that where this all led to? Because it's not an endorsement. It's not, because I didn't endorse. I was very, very specific in what I said. I have had a career-long policy, and I'm not going to violate it. I can't control people reading between the lines. And by the way, a lot of people are. I mean, every day, I get it from both sides. I get it. The only people I don't hear from are pro-Kasich people. But I hear from pro-Trump people angry at me for being for Cruz. I hear from Cruz people ticked off at me for not destroying Trump and not taking out Trump. Pardon the sniffles. I am not going to condemn Cruz. I've just given you what I honestly think of him. Look, I can't go back and repeat everything I've said over the course of 6 months, and I've said a lot. We've talked about, where conservatism is in the country versus populism. There are a lot of people that feel burned on conservatism. There are a lot of people right now. Let me give you an example. And this, by the way, I can trace this comment of mine back to last October or November, when Trump fever was at an all-time high. There weren't any elections coming up. We were just campaign appearances here and there, and all we had was the evidence each day of physical support, large crowds, other signs of who people were supporting and why, and there were any number of ways that you could find out what people were thinking. And it was at about that time that many in the conservative movement began to panic. And I'm talking about the real conservative movement. And let me tell you something else, folks. I may have to explain this for the next 6 months. See if Mr. Snerdley understands me on this. I do not consider myself to be an official pro forma member of the conservative movement. I am a conservative. I can explain it as well as anybody. I can push it. I can promote it. I can live it. I can be it. I can define it. But I am not part of the conservative movement. There is a conservative movement, and it exists out there, but I am not an official member of it. Do you understand what I mean, Mr. Snerdley? And do you agree with me? He certainly does agree with me. But because I'm not a member of the conservative movement doesn't mean anything. I'm just telling you, it is its own club, and I'm not a member. And for a whole host of reasons, I'm not a welcome member. By some people, I would be. But I don't want to be either. I don't want to get too in the weeds on this stuff. But back in last October and November, when this Trump fever was reaching all-time highs, I started reading and seeing the panic in the conservative movement. I never panicked. But people in the conservative movement did. There are lots of people in the conservative movement who depend on conservatism being thought of in a certain way, being relevant in a certain way. And with Trump triumphing, they were threatened because Trump wasn't. And yet here he is in the Republican Party. And there's all kinds of people running against him, and they are conservatives, and they're not even close. I'm talking about in polling last fall. They weren't even close. I mean, Trump was running away with everything. So there was a lot of panic in the conservative movement. And I sought to explain why. And it's not hard. There are conservative think tanks. There are conservative institutions. There are conservative media outlets. There are any number of different kinds of conservative organizations. Many of them raise money by asking for donations. And one of the ways they do it is by, and I do not, by the way, I do not ask for donations from anybody for anything other than our leukemia radiothon every year, which has nothing to do with conservatism. But many in the conservative movement, that's their source of income. And one of the ways they do it is to promise, to assure, to reassure, to comfort people into believing that donating to this conservative cause is going to make sure that conservatism is adequately represented in Congress, in the Senate, in policy. It's going to have a well-known place in the Republican Party, and people have donated to any number of honorable, good, great, decent people in them, conservative organizations. But here comes Trump, who's not ideological. He's not conservative. He's not liberal. But in this campaign, if you had to categorize him that way, he is standing for more things that conservatives identify with than he's not. His immigration position is strictly conservative. His view on terrorism is strictly conservative. But he's not a conservative, not a movement conservative. As such, he posed a threat because the people that are out there seeking donations, fundraising, on the assurance they're the ones that can keep conservatism prominent. Oh, my God. What their donors began to start saying to them, where is this conservatism you guys have been prominent? Where is it? They haven't seen any in 7 years in the Republican Party. Republican Party doesn't want any part of conservatism. Now, if you talk to Jim DeMint, the Heritage Foundation, in Washington, yeah. But you look at all the efforts conservatives have made in the states. There's governors, conservative governors left and right out there. There's evidence all over the country that conservatism is triumphing at the state level, but none of it in Washington. But then there's a conservative governor of Georgia, and he just caved on this religious freedom bill. Nathan Deal. So look, the point is that a lot of rank-and-file conservative voters began to ask, where is all this conservatism that we've been contributing to? Which then caused there to be threat or panic, whatever, within certain elements of the quote-unquote conservative movement. And they then began to see Trump as a threat. That begot an argument of populism versus conservatism. And people began to think, wait a minute, maybe conservatism isn't dominant. Maybe populism is. Maybe all kinds of self-doubt related questions started being asked. Now, I can't go back and remind everybody of all of these things that I have said, try to explain what's happening here, starting last June when Trump popped up. And I know it's a lot to remember. I don't mind repeating it now and then when necessary, in order to be clear. I'm in the communications business. It doesn't do me any good if people don't know what I mean when I say things. So any opportunity I get to clarify or to maybe say something again a better way to actually get my point across, I relish the opportunity. So when people call here and don't quite remember what I've said, I don't mind having to repeat it. I don't want to get so repetitive that you think that's all you hear on the program. But at the end of all this, my objective hasn't changed, and that is the Democrat Party, which is the home of liberalism, must lose. At the end of all of this, that is my objective. I don't feel duty-bound to maintain or protect or promote anything but the country from what I believe is its greatest threat, internationally and domestically, and that is radical, left-wing, whatever you want to call it, socialism, liberalism, you name it. If populism beats it, I'm going to be fine and dandy with it. I'm not going to feel like a failure if conservatism is not what beats it. Because at the end of the day, defeating liberalism is the key, and the only thing that's going to work when replacing it is conservatism. I am confident conservatism is going to triumph and prosper, whether people know that it is or isn't, whether people know they're conservative or not, whether they think they're ideological or not. It works every time that it is tried, and well, not every, obviously there are exceptions here, but issue by issue, be it economics, morality, various social, it triumphs. It's rooted in decency, morality, all of the virtues. Now, I'm way long here again. I have to take a brief time out, but we'll be back. There's more. Don't go away.
Members of the media, do not panic. Your show prep will continue with Rush on the EIB network.
Janet in Charlotte, North Carolina. I've got about a minute, but I wanted to get to you. I know you can do it. Hi.
Hey, thank you so much. Long-time listener, big fan. Great show today, Rush.
Thank you.
I want to comment on the Cruz versus Trump. Agreed. Cruz is conservative. Trump's the outsider. Cruz, technically an outsider, but the very fact that the club wants to push him ahead of Trump makes me think, why isn't everybody saying, okay, well, then we've got to push Trump to get to the 1237? I mean, just by virtue of the fact if the club thinks they can somehow contain or control Cruz, that makes me want Trump that much more.
Are you suggesting that because all these clubbers, the establishment people, are endorsing Cruz, that makes Cruz suspect?
No, I don't think it makes him suspect, but it makes me think that they think somehow they can control him a lot more.
We got to deal with this tomorrow. I'm out of time, but I will deal with this tomorrow. Remind me. Do not forget to remind me, along with that extra commercial I forgot.
He makes it look easy, but it's not. Rush on the EIB network.
Okay, I made a note. I made a reminder. My phone's going to remind me at 9:30 in the morning to complete my thought on our last caller. It's an interesting point that she's got. Thanks for being with us today, folks. That's the case every day. And look forward to tomorrow. Don't miss it. Be greatly worth it.